Why are the black-eyed children so terrifying? What is it about their presence that sends chills down our spines? There's something undeniably unsettling about the idea of these mysterious children, their pitch black eyes, and the sense of pure malevolence that seems to surround them. These children, often described as having eyes that are completely black, no whites, no irises, just voids, are enough to make anyone's skin crawl. But it's not just their physical appearance that's terrifying. There's something deeply wrong about their behavior, their mannerisms, and their very existence that taps into something primal in us. The black-eyed children represent the uncanny in a way that few other creatures do. They are children, beings we associate with innocence, trust, and vulnerability, but something about them feels utterly wrong. Their polite but insistent request to be let inside homes, their odd emotionless demeanor, and the gut-wrenching sense of dread that accompanies them create an atmosphere that feels both familiar and completely alien at once. The uncanny feeling they evoke, combined with their unsettling appearance, creates a cocktail of fear that is hard to shake. But what makes them so terrifying beyond their eyes and behavior? For one, they trigger a deep instinctual fear of the unknown. Children are typically seen as innocent and in need of protection. But when a child asks for help, whether it's to be let inside your home, given a ride, or allowed to use a phone, and their eyes are completely black, it twists the expectation we have of them. Their requests, while seemingly innocent, carry with them a dark, unexplainable weight. It's this distortion of the normal that makes them so chilling. The black-eyed children first emerged into modern folklore in the late 1990s, although some claim that tales about them go back centuries. The modern legend was popularized by Brian Bethel, a journalist who shared his own experience with these strange children online in 1996. Bethel's story would set off a wave of similar encounters, each one more bizarre and disturbing than the last. His story began in the quiet town of Abilene, Texas, where he was sitting in his car one evening. Bethel was approached by two children, one boy, one girl, who asked for a ride to their home. They were polite, too polite, and their eyes were completely black. Despite their innocent appearance, something about them sent a cold shiver down Bethel's spine. He tried to ignore the feeling, but the kids insisted more and more, growing more unnerving by the minute. Bethel felt an overwhelming sense of dread, as though something was terribly wrong. And then, in a moment that still haunts him, he saw the children's eyes more clearly, and his gut told him that something was not right. He couldn't explain it, but he knew he had to get out of there. Bethel fled, leaving the children behind, but the image of their black eyes stayed with him forever. That initial post by Bethel led to more stories from others who had encountered similar beings, children with black eyes, asking for help in isolated places, always in the dead of night. They had no pupils or sclerae, just black voids, and each encounter shared a strange, terrifying commonality, the feeling of being in the presence of something that wasn't human, something far darker. The black-eyed children are typically described as being between the ages of 6 and 16, though some stories describe them as appearing much younger or older. They often dress in outdated or ill-fitting clothing, sometimes looking strangely perfect for their age, but with an eerie, unnatural presence. They're often found in desolate or isolated places, parking lots, doorsteps, or quiet neighborhoods, and they usually ask for help in one form or another, a ride, entry into a home, or to use a phone. But what makes them so terrifying is their eyes, those solid, black orbs that seem to pierce through you as if searching for something. One particularly unsettling case comes from a woman named Lisa, who shared her experience on an online forum. Lisa had recently moved into a new home in a quiet neighborhood. One night, as she sat in her living room, she heard a knock at the door. When she opened it, She found two children standing on her doorstep. They were dressed in clothing that looked out of place for their age, their eyes solid black. They asked to come inside and use her phone. Lisa, feeling uneasy, initially considered letting them in, but something felt wrong, deeply wrong, and her instincts kicked in. She asked where their parents were, but they only offered vague answers. Something inside Lisa told her to keep the door closed, and she did. She quickly shut the door and called the police, but when officers arrived, the children had vanished without a trace. The officers found no sign of anyone in the area, and Lisa was left shaken and confused, unsure of what she had encountered. In another case, a man named Tom was walking through his neighborhood late one evening when he saw a group of children standing near an alleyway. He thought nothing of it at first, but as he walked closer, one of the children turned and locked eyes with him. Tom was struck with an overwhelming feeling of dread, his body going cold as he looked into the child's eyes, solid black, devoid of any expression. The child didn't say anything, but just stared at him. Tom quickly turned to leave, but when he glanced back, the children were gone. They had vanished into the night, as if they had never been there at all. But what happens if you make the mistake of ignoring your instincts and let them in? Could it be possible that by allowing them to enter your home, you're inviting something far worse? The black-eyed children have become notorious for their strange insistence on being allowed inside people's home. There's a chilling theory that says once you let them in, you may unknowingly invite a malevolent force into your life, something that can't be easily dismissed. One terrifying account comes from a man named David, who encountered two black-eyed children on a cold night in the middle of winter. He was sitting at home, enjoying a quiet evening, when he heard a soft knock at the door. When he opened it, he was confronted by two children, one boy and one girl, standing on his doorstep. Their eyes were completely black, and their expressions were disturbingly blank. They asked for help, claiming that they were lost and needed to use his phone. Against his better judgment, David let them in, feeling a strange sense of pity. The children didn't seem threatening, just lost and alone. But as soon as they crossed the threshold, a feeling of overwhelming dread filled the room. David described feeling an oppressive atmosphere settle over him the moment the children entered. The temperature in his house dropped drastically and the lights began to flicker. He tried to stay calm, offering the children his phone, but their behavior became increasingly erratic. The boy began to stare at him intently, while the girl looked around the room with a strange, almost predatory curiosity. David tried to speak with them, but his words fell hollow, as though they weren't being heard. The children wouldn't speak either, their silence more unnerving than any words could have been. The longer they stayed, the more disorienting it felt, like the air itself was thickening around him. As David tried to ask them where they were from, the boy suddenly grinned, revealing sharp, inhuman teeth. The smile was wide, too wide, and it sent a shockwave of terror through David's body. He realized then that the children were not lost, not innocent. Something much darker was in control. Panicking, David demanded that they leave, but the children only stared at him, their black eyes absorbing all light, leaving nothing but a hollow void. The atmosphere seemed to bend around them, and David suddenly felt a pressure on his chest, as though the very air was being sucked out of the room. In a final moment of desperation, David managed to force the children out of his home, slamming the door shut behind them. But the terror didn't end there. For weeks afterward, strange things began to happen. He would hear soft knocking at his door at all hours of the night, though no one was ever there. Objects in his house would move, doors would creak open on their own, and the oppressive cold he'd felt that night never fully left. In his dreams, the children appeared, their black eyes following him, silently watching. David realized too late that letting them in had been the worst mistake of his life. He never saw the children again, but the feeling of their presence lingered, an invisible shadow that haunted him for months. These kinds of stories are the stuff of nightmares, but they're not the only ones. Many who've let the black-eyed children into their lives report strange, unexplainable occurrences afterward. Whether it's bad luck, bad dreams, or worse, the idea that letting them inside unleashes something sinister is a consistent thread throughout the lore. The children are often seen as harbingers of bad events, their presence a precursor to something far darker. But why does the idea of the black-eyed children elicit such strong fear in us? Beyond the obvious terror of encountering something that isn't human, the black-eyed children play on some of our deepest fears. Children are supposed to be innocent, vulnerable, but these strange dark-eyed beings shatter that expectation. Their polite, almost rehearsed behavior contrasts sharply with the dark presence they exude. They ask for help, but there's something disturbing about their requests, something that doesn't feel right. The fear of the black-eyed children taps into a primal unease. Children are often seen as symbols of purity and innocence, yet these entities are anything but innocent. Their appearance, specifically their eyes, reminds us that there's something sinister lurking beneath the surface. It's that perhaps the creatures we fear most aren't the ones hiding in the shadows, but those who appear right in front of us, pretending to be just like us. The black-eyed children are unsettling because they seem to be human, but they are not. And that's what makes them so terrifying. The black-eyed children legend is one of the most chilling urban myths of our time. From its humble beginnings in an online forum to the countless stories shared by people around the world, this tale has captivated the imaginations of many. Whether the dark-eyed children are an alien presence, a demonic entity, or something even darker, their appearances continue to send shivers down our spines. So the next time you hear a knock at the door or see children standing alone in an isolated place, remember the legend of the black-eyed children and be extra cautious. Keep your doors locked and trust your instincts. You never know what might be lurking just outside your doorstep, waiting to make its move.